Awful Thursday. This is your host, Mae Renfroe here, and I've got my guest, Alysia Lyons on with me. And today, for a Thoughtful Thursday, Food for Thought, she's talking to us about ditching your mom guilt and finding your happy. So I think that's needed. Right. So Alysia is a Master Neurotransformation Results Coach, mom support coach, author, and podcast host, which I was on a podcast earlier this summer. And she's a proud mother of a son who has been her own course corrector. She now leads parents through long-lasting neurological shifts to help ease their guilt and increase their emotional peace to find their happy. So welcome, Alysia, to the podcast today, to Thoughtful Thursday.
Thank you so much for having me. I think we've been trying to do this for a while.
We have. We had kind of technical problems back in the summer right after I had been on yours. I believe, or did we try mine first? I'm not sure. No, I think it was on yours, and then I tried for mine, and then just something didn't connect right there on YouTube, and that occasionally happens with some guests. That's why, unfortunately, those that are tuning in, I'll not have like a Mighty Monday sometimes because we'll be ready to go live, and
and so mom guilt is usually in the bad category, but really what it is it's notifying us that we have a value that we are out of alignment with. So if you believe that a good mom cooks a home cooked meal every single night, and 3 nights out of the week you're not making a home cooked meal, now you're feeling guilty because your belief, your value is out of alignment with your actions. And so the guilt is just a notification. That's 100% made up. I haven't heard any moms actually say that out loud, but I think some of us think it.
yeah, feel that way. Yeah.
So, so the way to then get rid of mom guilt is to identify what the rule is that you're breaking and either change your behavior or change the rule. So
Okay.
you can
Yeah.
start cooking 7 nights a week, and now the guilt should be gone because you're doing what your value says that you should do. And then we run into the problem of, well, last week I didn't. This week I did. So I'm good, but last week I didn't. So there's nothing that we could do about the past. So then we're in the realm of we have to change the belief. And so maybe a good mom cooks every single night, 7 days a week, except when the kitchen sink explodes. Right?
Yeah, when something happens.
Yeah, except when we've, this is more realistic, except when we've overscheduled ourselves.
Yeah.
With our children's activities. And I know you have, how many kids do you have? You have 7 kids?
7 under our, 8, I have 10 kids, but ages 24 to 2, but under our roof right now, 8 of them. Yeah.
So if each of those kids has one thing that they do one night of the week, now you got things going on 8 days of the week.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we don't. I mean, because I have been like, I can't do that. I know other mothers can. I can't. And so we have different things that we do, and then things that they're into collectively. Like they like skating, so not all of it, but some of them like skiing. We'll go to a skating rink, maybe every other week, and then now it's skiing season up here, where we are. In our ski hill just opened. We don't have a whole lot of snow. It took a while, but it's open. So now anytime, well, it's not open every time, but it's when it's volunteer run, but people are can do it when they have time. So when it's open, the kids want to go. So it's that kind of thing we kind of do collectively. But so back to what we're saying.
Yeah. So, a lot of times we overschedule ourselves.
Mhm.
Our kids don't have similar interests. I just know moms have, some moms have a kid that's in football and a kid that's in swimming and a kid that's in tennis or maybe one kid that's in all three. And, some of the sports overlap. You can probably tell I'm not a sports mom. Um, but some of the things overlap.
Yeah.
And then when they overlap, then we've got, long days. And one of these days you might not be able to cook at home if that's so, but finding the exception is essentially giving yourself grace. A, to not be perfect, and
Mhm.
B, to be human, which is basically the same thing.
Mhm. That's what we are. So this is what we have to work with,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
That's
that's
good.
the thing that I think that moms expect of themselves is to be
Mhm.
perfect.
Mhm.
And we have a lot of beliefs that we don't really examine. We either learn them from our parents, or will learn what we learn from our parents and then try to do the exact opposite, which is, if we don't enjoy how our parents were, it's a good place to start, but sometimes we go to the extreme. So I don't like it when my mom told me no, so I'm never going to tell my kid no. And as we know, you don't ever tell your kid no, that creates different problems. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of
Mhm.
finding a happy medium between
Mhm.
what you didn't like as a parent or as a child, and how you're going to work with your child.
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, for sure. Yeah. So then this can be in a variety of things that our mindset that we think, like you said, is being the good mom or the perfect mom, and then having a hard
Mhm,
time fitting up to that if we're looking around at other parents that are in a different season than us. Maybe they
mhm.
have they don't have just the littles anymore, and they can maybe get up earlier and have their different routines or whatever. And there's other moms that have the little ones can't do that, and so we can't be comparing, and we're all in different seasons. So, um, yeah, that's
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's important to not compare to other
mhm,
moms the best that you
mhm.
can. I my son just turned 13 yesterday, and
Okay.
so
Oh,
we had a birthday party, and my brother and his wife and four children were there. And they're varying ages. I think the oldest is 7 and the youngest is 5 months. Um, and my sister-in-law has done a lot of child development. And so I'll watch her with her kids and the way and how calm and patient she is with them. And an older version of myself would have really beaten myself up because before I healed a lot of my stuff, I wasn't as patient
yeah,
as
yeah.
I I could have been, or as I see her being. And so, the truth is that in every moment we are doing the best that we can with the tools and resources that
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have. And so, there an older version of yourself deserves love and compassion because she really was doing the
mhm,
best that she could. And when we're not compassionate with ourselves, then sometimes our guilt can be really sneaky in how it affects us.
mhm,
Um, and
mhm,
I had some mom guilt that I released, which is kind of what led me down this path. And I was beating myself up for essentially not knowing the future and allowing someone to hurt my son. And
mm,
my defense mechanism what at the time was, I'm going to leave you before you have the chance to hurt me. And so I had
mhm,
imagined my son was going
mhm,
to come back to me one day and say, how come you didn't protect me? And
Mhm.
I didn't think that I was gonna be able to handle that, and so I was pushing him away in the moment. He would
Mhm.
wanna snuggle with me, and I would snuggle for maybe 30 seconds max, and then I would start pushing him away. And so I didn't even recognize that I was doing that until after I had let go of the guilt. And
Mhm.
he told me that his favorite thing, that I did with him, the thing that made him feel the most loved was when I snuggled him.
Mhm.
And so that became the thing that I did more often than not. And every single day before we would start our day, we would sit and snuggle on the couch because that's how he filled his love bucket.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and craved that attention or that one-on-one, and different,
Mhm.
children, I think, crave that more. I see that in my children with all the yeah, with all my children, and some are really needing that. Others, they don't need that as much, but some do. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, to be mindful of that. So I don't know if that's kind of where you're going, but just and you got to really make the most of that time because they do. If time is so fleeting. Yeah, as they say,
Yeah.
the days. I think I've heard the days are long and the years are short, something like that.
Mhm.
Or and the
Yes.
nights can be and the
Yeah.
nights can be long because if you're up with little ones a lot. So, but really, the years are quite short. Yeah.
That you blink. I mean, I had an infant 3
Yeah.
minutes ago.
Yeah. Now he's 13. He's a teenager.
And now he's 13. I blinked, and now he's
Yeah.
13, so, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So we got to make the most of it. It's not nice to live in regret, but it can happen. So, how do you feel that
Yeah.
a person could like not live in regret? Like go through life and be our imperfect selves, and
Right.
not.
I think the most important thing is to really just get to know yourself and essentially to love yourself because, um, a lot of that regret is a form of beating ourselves up. Like,
Mhm.
I will say, like, I do wish that I had the patience of Job, like my sister-in-law has with her kids. I
Mhm.
wish that I did. And, but I also believe that, my son is my son because, he's a gift from God, and God
Mhm.
wouldn't have trusted me with him if he didn't think that I was the right mom for my son. And that includes the mistakes. It
Mhm.
includes the things that like God knows we're human.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
includes the humanity.
Mhm.
And so there is some grace that we need to give to ourselves, to remember that regret is really just sucking the joy out of, the present moment. And if you're living in regret, you're not fully
Mhm.
present today.
Mhm.
And if you're not fully present today, then you're missing these long days and these short years when you're not
Mm.
fully present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that can be hard because we all have that. Than me and myself and my, through my years of parenting, and I can look back at things that can really bug me and all. And so it's been a process of just taking it to God and then and forgiving myself, but realizing, that again, some of the
Mhm.
things you mentioned, that we did the best what we thought at the time, or maybe we did have a lack of patience, but it's a new day, and we're gonna make the most of it, and
Yeah.
make apologies. Maybe can't redo, you can't go back and undo these things, but that's when we acknowledge that we made mistakes, or and apologize, and yeah.
Right. And that's a big thing too is, um man, I heard what you said and I had my response and then it just flew out of my mind. Do you remember what you said again?
Well, just that, yeah, I've gone through years of my parenting that I've done things that I can that regret, and
Yeah.
knowing that you can't undo, but just trying to make,
Right.
acknowledging that
That was
we've
the
made
part.
mistakes. Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, we can't really undo it, but we can talk to our kids about what happened. And
Okay.
so, I have said that had my dad sat down with me and explained the things that he did and why he did them, that 99% of my limiting beliefs would not exist. And, my dad was a man of very few words, and he also would get really angry. And so
Mhm.
he would say things, say few words in his anger, and then I would make my own meaning out of what he would say. But
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
when I lose my temper with my son, I explained to him this happened the other day when we were going shoe shopping, and I tried to tell him in the moment. I was like, dude, you are sucking the joy out of this moment because of the attitude that you have right now. And I did lose my temper, and we left, and I didn't say anything for 45 minutes because I wasn't sure what was gonna. Number one, there
Mhm.
was his friends were with us too, and I wasn't sure
Okay.
that the things coming out of my mouth were gonna be things that weren't gonna just embarrass the snot out of him, and I'm not trying to do that.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. For sure.
and then, when we had a moment alone, I said, I didn't like some of the things that were coming out of your mouth, and um I don't think that they're who you really are.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and it was really triggering for me to hear you say some of these things. And
Mhm.
that, coupled with the irritation that you were having about shoe shopping, it's like I lost it. And I owned my behavior, and I explained how his behavior affected my reaction, but my reaction was mine.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, he doesn't have the chance to make his own meaning out of what I did about how I behaved. That, like, oh, my mom doesn't love me. Those are things that, or I'm a bad kid because my mom yelled at me or my mom got mad at me. Those are the things that kids do. Those are the
Mhm.
and so if you do lose your temper, if you do say something that came out wrong, or whatever the case is, or making dinner every single night is important to you,
Mhm. Mhm.
you can tell your kid, "You know what? We're gonna have to go to McDonald's today. I know I don't wanna feed you McDonald's every day, but I'm gonna take you to McDonald's today because I'm tired."
Mhm. Mhm.
And I don't know a kid in the world that cares about whether or not you go
Well,
out to dinner, but
that one.
right,
All right.
you know.
Mhm.
But
I can see.
explaining things to our kids, I think that there was an old style of parenting where you just sweep things under the rug and
Mhm.
you don't talk about
Mhm.
it. Um, but the more that you explain your reactions and
Mhm.
your emotions to your kids, the more that they're going to understand their own emotions
Mhm.
and not make up things about your emotions and what they mean about them.
Yeah, what they think, what they gathered from what you did and your
Mhm.
response. You can gather and have an opinion and paint a brown picture, and it can hold feelings
Yeah.
towards you that doesn't need to be there if you would just say, explain your part and your side and why you
Right.
did what you did. I think that is really good, and to really, you know, be open with our children that we are not perfect. We are trying to do what's right for them, and that's what we want to do. That's our goal. But sometimes we mess up, and when we say that, if we don't, and then because they can see through it, they can know better anyway. But then assuming we may assume if that's in the past, so that's in the past. We're not going to bring it up. But maybe they're still harboring that. Maybe that is still bothering them. And if we had, I think it's okay to bring some things up if it's a way to release. You know, make it correct to help them to have a better understanding. Does that make sense? That's what
Mhm.
you were talking about, right?
Absolutely. And especially emotions are confusing to kids, and society doesn't like us to feel our emotions, and so that's a lot of times where explosive, yelling comes from, is because we've stuffed a lot of things down. If the first time I heard my son say what I heard him say that day, if I had told him the first time, that really bothers me and I don't want you to talk like that, then it wouldn't have built up the way that it did. And so I
Mhm,
wouldn't have been dealing with that and the the not wanting to buy shoes, or the getting
mhm,
frustrated about the
mhm,
shoes. And that comes that shoe situation, that's not the first time he's gotten frustrated about buying shoes. And so there were lots of things that I was holding on to that I didn't realize, and then they just came bubbling out.
mhm, mhm,
And and I wasn't proud of my behavior, but I know that my son understands that my anger wasn't because he's a bad kid. It was, I didn't appreciate the language he was using.
mhm. Yeah, and you finally was like, "Okay, we're gonna take care of this issue," right? We're nipping this.
Hmm.
But maybe you had been letting it slide before, but it was like, "No, no, this isn't good. You wanna address it for
Yeah.
his good, right? For
Yeah.
his well-being and for his future."
Hmm.
Because, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's important. So, yeah, it's hard being a mother. We have a lot of things to take care of. Like, I don't mean the physical work in the house, all the meals and but uh,
But that too.
shepherding, yeah, and that too, but shepherding their hearts and the shepherding and and helping with the attitudes and growing, and it's a lot to be on top of, yeah. And
Yeah.
so then that's how we end up with some guilt because we really do care. We aren't caring. Um, so, like, what are some ways that you really help moms? Like, you are a coach in this. Um, what did you say? In helping with neuro neurological shifts to help ease the
Yeah.
guilt. Okay. And have emotional peace. So what does that kind of look like? Could you paint us a
Yeah.
picture?
So, I had watched a demo of a coaching session of a mom who was feeling guilty because she was at this conference instead of being home with her kid. And the way that they dealt with that emotion, the guilt, was they had the mom tap into how much she loves her kid, which is great, and it doesn't at all ex- touch the issue. The issue was, if I was going to guess, that a good mom stays home with her kid and doesn't leave her children with maybe their father, or leave the with anybody for 2 days, like, without talking to her directly. I wouldn't know for sure, but that's what I could guess. And so this was a self-help personal development conference that she was at, and so, a good mom does stay home with her kids, except when she's developing herself to be a better person,
Mhm,
to be a better mom, except when she's, rejuvenating herself
mhm,
so that
mhm,
she can be a better mom, except when she's filling her own cup,
mhm,
right? So there's a lot of different exceptions that it's important for the person who has the guilt to find the exception. Because I could tell you a bunch of exceptions, but they may not resonate for you.
mhm,
So I do one-on-one sessions with my clients, because one-on-one is for me, that's how I was supported the best, is one-on-one, me and my coach diving into what this guilt was. And our brains are like neurons that fire together, wire together, which means that if there's an emotion to an event, then every time this kind of event happens, then the emotion will show up.
mhm,
Essentially, in a nutshell, and I don't even know if I'm 100% explaining it correctly. But when we can, once upon a time, they didn't think that we could change our brains. So this is who I am. I'm an angry person. That's what I mean. That's in the water now where people think, well, you can't change a person. You actually can change. I'm 100% different than I was 8 years
Mhm,
ago when I got into this coaching world.
mhm,
Um, and so one of the ways that we operate is we have these beliefs. Like I mentioned with my dad, um, really short story. I was climbing up to the top of a jungle gym following my brothers, and they jumped down off the jungle gym, and I was scared and I couldn't jump down. And I tried to
mhm,
get back down um, the way that I came, but I couldn't see or feel the step. And so
mhm,
I couldn't drop down. I didn't trust that I would be safe if I lowered myself down. And so I was 4 years old. I sat there and I cried until my dad came and helped me. And just knowing who my dad was and the time that we were spending with him was on the weekend, and my dad was a last minute sermon writer, and so he would write he I 100% interrupted his flow. And when my flow gets interrupted, it's not it's not fun. I don't enjoy that. It's
mhm,
frustrating when
mhm,
you're in the flow and somebody interrupts you.
mhm,
So that was the energy that he was coming in with. And he said, "You got up there by yourself. Why couldn't you get down?" And I felt very shamed. And so in that moment, I decided the seed was planted that my dad didn't love me. And then my brain started collecting the evidence
mhm, mhm.
that that was a fact. And that's what happens. And so, what I do in coaching sessions with my clients is I go back to that memory where that my dad doesn't love me
Yeah.
belief was
Mhm.
planted,
Yeah.
and we uproot that.
Okay.
Because all of the things that I just said, he was writing his sermon and getting disrupted. His flow was disrupted. Um, there's several men have said to me, well, maybe he was trying to empower you. That's another possibility.
Mhm,
And so when that's a real life thing that I was coached through, and my coach said, I now I want you to look for the evidence that your dad did love you.
mm,
And so I went through all of these files, started unlocking
mhm,
in my brain when I was looking for the evidence that my dad did love me.
mhm.
And that's the
Oh,
kind of thing that I do with my client
yeah.
is help them find these beliefs that aren't
Yeah.
serving them,
Yeah.
pull it out by the root where it started, and then
Yeah.
everything else changes.
Yeah.
Like, I
I
didn't
can
have for many years, I didn't have a great relationship with my dad. It was very awkward. It was very hard to talk to him. And which fueled my he doesn't love me
yeah. Yeah.
belief. And I never once had to talk to him about any of that, but everything changed for me.
Yeah. Oh, wow. When you went through
Yeah,
that process that you mentioned, and
correct.
then you could feel better about him. And
Yeah. And my dad passed away a couple of years ago, and I still feel him now with me all the time.
yeah.
And when I think about him, it's not there's no regret, like, I wish that we had had that conversation, or I wish that he had treated me differently or anything.
Yeah.
It's the grieving process was clean and not
Yeah.
full of a bunch of emotions that didn't need to be there, that are
Mhm,
attached to, "I wish we had a better relationship."
mhm. Oh, wow. Can see how, yeah, definitely that helps. So, well, I mean, did you get to kind of experience the relationship more before he passed away, or you mean you just had the healing and knew that he did love you and that, or did you?
Little bit of both. My dad was still, he was still a man of a few words.
Okay.
And so we didn't have, and I love, love, love deep conversations.
Mhm.
And I didn't ever really get to have those deep conversations with him one on one. Um, but there was once upon a time that I equated like him listening to me and talking to me as if he doesn't, then he doesn't love me.
Mhm.
But I just understood that that was, that was who he was, and this was our relationship. Um, and, about 2 months before he died, I took him, it was for his birthday, I took him to all of the houses that he lived
Mhm.
in his life that were local
Oh, wow.
to
Yeah.
our time.
Yeah.
And we got to sing, one of his favorite, um, Fleetwood Mac songs.
Okay.
Like, the song I put on his station and the song came on and we were singing, I was like, that's my favorite memory of all
Yeah.
time."
Yeah. Sounds like.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Oh, that's so neat. So neat. What I was gonna say about that too, I was talking with another kind of maybe childhood and what that went on with their childhood that affected them with their parenting, then we can have a better understanding. That might be, it's like you just don't know their upbringing. Maybe they didn't have the relationship with their parent, right? So they don't
mhm,
even know what, like they maybe weren't close to their mom or to their dad, and now they don't know how to implement that to their children. So it can be sometimes like that. That's what she said. She understood. So she went through some years of not having good relationship with her mom and just kind of blamed it on herself or whatever until she realized, hey, my mom actually didn't have that. And when she
yeah,
seen that, that was really healing for her and her mom. And so you
yeah.
never know.
There's
It's
all
good to
everybody has a
understand that.
story,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
don't
that is
have
a
to know it to have compassion for someone.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So, all that
yeah.
compassion, yeah. Well, that's sweet.
Especially our parents, because as we've established, parenting is hard.
That's right, and they're right. And so we realize that is we're having a hard time. They too. It's hard. It's hard,
Yeah,
and that you know, every day you just try to do your best. Yeah. Yeah. Because so in your coaching, then you have the podcast. And so your podcast then is the same kind of thing. Right? This is what you're giving on your podcast is things that moms need to hear to help them in their parenting, right? And then
yeah, I
do a
like
lot of
having
you have guests.
I didn't hear that.
You have a lot of guests on or more on your own or
I do a lot more guest episodes because, like I
okay.
said, I love having deep conversations with
Yeah.
people. And
Yeah.
so, essentially my podcast is you're eavesdropping on my really cool really cool conversations with really cool
Okay.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so eventually I'll do some more solo episodes, but as for right now, it's I've enjoyed the deep conversations like this,
Yeah.
and just learning new things about different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's good when we share that and then it's helping the audience see that they're
Yeah.
not alone. Just others going through this and um and a welcome to the
And sometimes
sisterhood.
it helps me in my coaching too, because I had a guest on recently that told me about a book called The Gift of Failure. And it's for parents to allow your children to fail.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
and I know that I have at least 2 clients that's gonna that's
Mhm.
helpful for,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
myself. Like, those are
Yeah.
things that's a book
Yeah.
I wanna read because, I was thinking about it, a couple days ago that, it probably stems from everybody gets a trophy where kids can't handle the failure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there was a stream of teen suicides a couple years back in the LA area, And I think in part of it, it's because they don't know how to deal with the failure, and part of them not knowing how to deal with failure is parents don't know how to either deal with failure or let their kids fail.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was a fascinating conversation I was having in my head.
Wow. Yeah. And another thing I was going to say is because sometimes parents can be really particular about things that maybe isn't it. Like I've heard about, say, um, grades in school, and can if they get a certain grade, then they're all over on their child for it, and they're instead of realizing maybe they have learning disabilities, or the learning is different, or just I
Right.
don't think that's good, healthy to have such a big deal made if they've got low grades. I mean, maybe address the problem and see what it is, but without
Yeah.
making the child feel horrible, and then they don't want to fail because then they're not going to please the parents, and then be a lot.
If you can approach parenting from curiosity, approach your child's behavior from a place of curiosity, why would they be feeling this way? So if I could tell myself on Sunday to be more curious about, why my son is upset about shoe shopping, then we might have been in a different situation. We might not have had my mini meltdown. And he might not have been melting down. And I can look back, and I think that um his irritation was from frustration that the
Mhm,
first
mhm,
store that we went to didn't have the shoes that he wanted. And now we had to spend more time looking for shoes. And guess what? I didn't want I wanted the same thing. I wanted the first store to have the shoes that he wanted
mhm,
in the color
mhm,
that he wanted, in the size that he needed. I wanted the
mhm,
same
mhm.
thing. I was a little frustrated we had to go to more stores. It is what it is. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, do that um work that can help, preventative work. If we can think do that, that could help. That's what you're saying,
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. And so just put some helps in place that can be ready to help them and yourself. Is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's been a good conversation. This is something really important. So is there kind of anything else you want to say before we close our time together? Anything we missed? Anything
Yeah, I'd
you
just
want
like
somebody to
to
know?
add that I wrote a book called Good Mom
Oh, okay.
Rules and
Ah,
Ditch Mom
okay.
Guilt and Find Your Happy.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good for you. I was sorry about look at my notes here and I was like, well, it doesn't say anything about a book. So I get you do have a okay. Okay, so it's
Maybe
available
I
on
need to
Amazon.
add that.
Yeah. So it's available on Amazon. I would uh
It is.
trust,
You can
right?
find it under my name, Alysia Lyons, ALYSIALYONS, or you can search Good Mom Rules and
Okay.
and Mom Guilt, and it'll come up.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Great. I'll if you give that to me, I'll put the link in the description.
Yeah, I
And
will
same
do
with
that.
how to connect with you for your coaching if somebody's interested in that as
Absolutely.
well. All your stuff there. So okay. Well, thank you for sharing, taking your time and sharing that with us about ditching your mom guilt and having that peace and that and joy, because
Absolutely.
we should be able to have joy in parenting. We don't want to have that sucked away from, but it can happen these things. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be challenging, and we can still find joy in it.
Hmm.
Both can exist
Hmm.
simultaneously.
Yeah, at the same time, and yeah, all the work we're so meant to do is to do our best, one day at a time, and we're all work in progress. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, thank you again, Alicia, for being with me today. Thanks, and everyone is have a good week, and I'll be back here next week for a Thought Thursday or on Mighty Monday. Everything works. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Take care. All the
Thanks.
best.